Good morning, everyone. We are having one more minute to our Sunday share. So if you are on the Sunday share with us, please let me know who you are and where you're from. Please make sure you have your name on it. Okay, here you go. Where is the Sean? Can you get me in, please? And then I will know where you're from and who you are. And I know I have many people from Europe, especially from Norway, Netherlands, and Ireland. So please, Lindsay is already up. By the way, Kristen, if you have anybody you like to share with this, please go ahead. And then Sean is shared with all the BaZi group right now with the level 1, level 2. And Lars from Norway. I knew Lars, you're gonna be here. You're the first one always here. And Lindsay from San Diego, thank you. I need every one of you be able to come up and say hi and say good morning. And please share. I have 14 people here already. I have not seen you guys texting me. I need to know all of you where you're from. Hiroko from Canada, thank you. Patricia from Germany, one of our great students. Did you send this share to me? Do I need to hit share? Okay. And the share. Okay. And Simon, how are you? From Netherlands. Julie Saint-Pierre. Thank you, Julie. Good afternoon from Halifax, Canada. Hi, Bud. Good morning from New York, New Jersey. I also have a good news for everyone. Harmon's here. Lao Shi Harmon too. And Dr. Sita. And Kara from San Diego. Juan from, I think he's from Spain, if I remember correctly. So are you on the Facebook, Christian? Lao Shi?
Yeah, it's working well, and I just shared it to the Canadian Acupuncture group. So hopefully there'll be a couple of people who tune in.
Yes, and Dr. Sangeeta from India. Oh, sorry, Guatemala. Juan is from Guatemala. Sorry, I just moved you to another country. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And no further delay, let me introduce you, Dr. Christian Saint-Pierre, which we already know him. This is the second time I invite him, so you know how wonderful he is and how supportive and how much that he been contribute to the Balanced Method community. And Dr. Christian Saint-Pierre is the owner and the chief acupuncturist at the Access Acupuncture in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. I was pretty confused. I thought Nova Scotia is another country, but now I learned. Thank you for helping me. And the developer of the BaZi Balance Acupuncture. While study acupuncture, BaZi Feng Shui, and Qigong with the late Dr. Richard Tefu Time, Christian began to develop an integrated classical and cutting-edge concept into his practice, including the Chrono Acupuncture and Shen therapy. He has also continued his deep interest in development of this area, offering truly holistic and well-rounded treatment approach to his patients. Christian is received his certification from the Academy of Acupuncture as executive level, and also from his school, the Academy of Classic Oriental Science in Nelson, British Columbus. So this time I was correct for your school. So let's give a shout out to his school and let's welcome Dr. Christian Saint-Pierre to join us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Hello. It's wonderful to be here.
So excited. And today our topic is we want to talk more about the three essential, the BaZi, which is the chrono analysis. And thank you for everybody joining me today. It is wonderful to have him here. Lao Shi, let's do it. Go ahead.
Sure. So, well, thanks for tuning in, guys. This is definitely a fascinating subject. And it really is something that I feel is absolutely beneficial to helping clinical cases, especially difficult clinical cases. For those of you that may have had some exposure to some of the classical texts of Chinese medicine, such as the Huangdi Neijing, you may have sort of realized that a large portion of it is dedicated to time-based therapies. It talks a lot about the seasons and the illnesses and therapies that we should expect in those seasons. It talks about the times of day. It talks about different years. And actually, it dedicates almost 3/4 of the text to these kinds of time-based theories and practical treatment strategies. And yet, we rarely use them in clinic. Part of it is because we really don't have a very strong foundation and understanding as to what these kinds of theories and treatments actually are. And ever since I was in school, I was fascinated by these ideas, by time-based acupuncture and what we now call chrono acupuncture. And so over the course of my postgraduate studies, I've spent a lot of time looking into the classics and understanding them better, as well as modern ideas or modern disciplines such as chronobiology, which is basically the study of time on biology and on different biological rhythms and patterns and these kinds of things. But as far as Chinese medicine is concerned, why is time so important, and why do we put so much emphasis on it? So, of course, we do now understand from a biomedical perspective the role that time can play in a person's health, in their constitution, in the development of disease, and even in their temperament and their behaviors. We talk about whether or not people are night owls or early birds, and this actually can be traced back to, in large part, to their time of birth. We talk about how people born in different seasons, even in different months, actually are more susceptible to certain health conditions. And this is verifiable through large scale statistical analyses of people's health conditions and their birth time. So the Chinese were onto something when they are looking at time and its relationship to health and behavior. But how does it fit into sort of the whole view of Chinese medicine, and how does it fit into sort of Chinese cosmology? And to understand that, I think the best place to start, and this is the place that I start in my classes, is to go all the way back to what we call the three essentials, or the sometimes called the Santi Dao, or the San Yuan, which basically means three essentials. And the three essentials are pervasive throughout Chinese medicine, but they take on sort of different names or different conceptual roles. I think most Chinese medicine practitioners would be more familiar with the three treasures, right? The three treasures are Jing, Qi, and Shan, right? But the Jing, Qi, and Shan are actually derived from a broader model of heaven, earth, and human, right? These three levels, the three levels of heaven, earth, and human. They say between heaven and earth are humans and their laws. And that in turn is derived from an even broader conceptual model of yin, yang, and qi. Okay, between yin and yang is qi and its transformations. So these are the three essentials that we actually look at, and we should be looking at when we are doing any kind of diagnosis and treatment planning. Of course, we do this on a much narrower scale. We look at usually pieces of that puzzle, but the more of the entire puzzle that you can understand, the better of an idea that you can have as to what exactly is going on and how to actually balance the person out or to correct the problem. So the three essentials are, as I said, heaven, earth, and human. And they actually pertain to three different aspects of qi, which we can find both what I would call prenatally and postnatally. So prenatal earthly qi, let's start with that one. That is really a person's ancestry, okay, the genetics of a person. Okay, we know of the close association between Jing and ancestry, and earth qi is really about that. It is what environments did your ancestors live in? What environments did they adapt to? Okay, so what genetic adaptations does a person have? And so that is really the earth qi, right? The jing that they get, right, or that they receive from their parents. And so we have to understand that on one level. Then the prenatal human qi is really what happens in utero. Okay, so besides your sort of genetic heritage, there are plenty of things that can happen in utero that can affect the development of a fetus, whether or not the mother is whether or not she experiences severe illness, or whether or not she experiences severe stresses, or whether or not the mother is an alcoholic. Okay, all of these things can actually, significantly impact the in utero development of the fetus. And finally, we have the prenatal heavenly qi. So prenatal heavenly qi is essentially time. It is the seasonal climate, right? It is the basically the qi of the atmosphere and of the climate and of the heavens, right? That is interacting with the development of the fetus, and essentially that continues to play a role in a person's development until they are born. And when they are born and they take their first breath, what happens is that now all of a sudden the prenatal qi becomes essentially fixed in stone. It's no longer going to change. And that person starts now being exposed to the postnatal world of postnatal qi. So the prenatal heavenly qi is essentially the qi of that particular moment in time. Okay, the light levels, the temperature, the climate, essentially the environment, the heavenly environment that they are born into, or at the moment that they are born, that becomes their prenatal heavenly qi. And it becomes like a timestamp. It's sort of like it becomes affixed to them. So prenatal heavenly qi is always changing. It changes with time. And when a person ends up being born and taking their first breath, all of a sudden those transformations stop. And so that particular moment in time is recorded as that person's prenatal heavenly qi in the form of what we would call a natal chart. Okay, and a natal chart is one of the things that we look at when we're using BaZi. BaZi means the 8 characters. And so the 8 characters which we're talking about are 8 or 4 pairs of heavenly stems and earthly branches, which we actually use to mark time in the Chinese calendar. There would be the stem and branch of the year, the stem and branch of the month, the stem and branch of the day, and the stem and branch of the hour. And when a person is born, that particular stem branch quality, that those 8 characters, they are describing the type of qi that's existing at that moment. And so that becomes a part of them, of the prenatal qi. But of course, time doesn't stop, okay? And the qi of the heavens continues to change even after a person is born. And so what ends up happening is that as these qualities of qi in the atmosphere and in the heavens, as they change, they are now affecting the person on a postnatal level. Okay, in other words, there is an interaction that's happening between the qi of the person and the qi of the outside world. And the same is true for postnatal earthly qi and postnatal human qi. Okay, once a person is born, now they become subject to postnatal earthly qi, which is essentially the physical environment. Okay, the whether or not they are sort of living in an urban environment or a rural environment, whether or not they are surrounded by mountains or living by the seaside, whether or not they live in on the shady side of a mountain or the light side of a mountain, more to the north or more to the south. All of these things are the earth level of postnatal earthly qi, and we know that as feng shui. Okay,
Right.
that's what we really call it. Now, at the human level, we have human post heavenly qi, and that is really all of the sort of dynamic experiences and activities and influences that are that we are subjected to in terms of relationships, in terms of foods, in terms of events that happen to us, and the types of food you eat. Food is a post heaven type of chi, but also the people you are associating with. So the chi you get um, after birth from your mother or from your sister or from your friends or your spouse or your teacher, this is all post heaven human chi, right? Which we interact with in a certain way. And depending on what your prenatal chi is like, the types of post heavenly chi that you interact with, you are going to respond and react and interact with those types of post heavenly chi in a very unique and personal way. Of course, there are some broad strokes which we can paint and say that, well, everybody is obviously going to benefit from eating food. Yes, but not everybody's going to benefit from eating millet, for example, right? Or not everybody might benefit from eating cabbage. Okay. So your prenatal chi actually helps us determine what the best types of foods are for you to eat to maintain a good balance and a good health. And likewise, in terms of relationships, not everybody might benefit from having lots and lots of friends. Some people might actually benefit more from being a little bit more introverted or a little bit more reserved. Okay. Other people might benefit from having a spouse, and yet other people might benefit from remaining single. Okay. And we can determine this looking at the prenatal chi and understanding sort of what kind of beneficial social or interpersonal interactions exist for that person, what's useful and what's harmful. And at the same time, in terms of a prenatal heaven or postnatal heavenly chi environment, we can understand what times of year are the best for a person, right? What times of year are times when a person might be least susceptible to illness. Likewise, we can also understand times of year, even times of month, or even times of day when a person might be most susceptible to illness. So we can understand then, right, looking forward in time, we can sort of see, okay, there is a period of time coming up, perhaps an entire year coming up, where there is a significant risk of fairly important illness, and so we want to, right, be aware of that.
Remember,
Now,
sorry to
yeah,
interrupt you. Did you mention about 庚子年 we're gonna have illness at the right at the beginning of the year? Did you also read?
yes. So I had written an article, and for the Chinese Year of the Metal Rat, and the metal rat is generally considered a what we would call a pandemic year. Now, when I wrote my article, this was before Wuhan was actually, in the news, and we didn't know anything. And I had written it, and I mean, when was the last time we've had a pandemic, right? so,
No.
um, so exactly. So I wrote it, and although we wanted to write pandemic, I kind of downplayed a little bit, and I just said, "Oh, it's going to be a year where there's a significant risk of communicable and respiratory illness. Well, look at where we are now.
You have a
Right?
very good way of using the words. Nice, very gentle.
That's my diplomatic side. I tend to downplay things a little bit sometimes. But anyway, with these three essentials, okay, understanding how feng shui affects us, understanding how the human level of qi affects us, which includes food and relationships as well as medicine. And the human level, we generally call that yang shengfa. Okay, yang shengfa includes foods and your relationships, your activities. So whether or not it's qigong or exercise or swimming or sports or meditation. It also includes medicine, right? These are the activities that we undertake, okay, that are either done to us or that we do ourselves. But as a whole, that medicine falls under the human level. And then heaven qi is, of course, timing. Now, one of the fascinating things is that we have the ability to choose and to affect our feng shui and our yang shengfa. Okay, we can choose, right, what our environment is going to be like, right? We can do interior design. Even if you can't move away from where you are, you can modify your environment. Okay, likewise with yang shengfa. Okay, to a large extent, we can choose what we eat, we can choose what we do, and we can even choose who we associate with. Okay, so we have a fairly significant amount of control, okay, over the postnatal earthly qi and the postnatal human qi.
Yes.
But we have no control over postnatal heavenly qi. Time just continues, okay, and the qi of time will be what it is, and we have no way of modifying that. We can't skip a year. As much as we would have liked to skip the year of the rat, we couldn't skip it, right? You can't go back in time. And so, in a sense, BaZi actually ends up being one of the most important of the three essentials to understand at a deep level. Because what's going to happen is that the effects of heavenly qi are unavoidable. Okay, but because this works as a holistic concept, the three essentials work together. Okay, if we know that perhaps a year is coming or a month is coming where we are at risk of a certain illness, okay, we can actually understand from a 5-element perspective, okay, what kind of illness we are at risk of, where the excesses and deficiencies of the elements lie, right? And then what we can actually do is we can use yang shengfa and we can use feng shui to help mitigate, okay, or to reduce the risk that the heavenly qi brings into our lives.
So, 老师, by doing so, do you have any examples that you can show us that what we do with the BaZi and then to be able to help people in all this way, and then they have some way to tap in to what we are introducing?
Yeah, yes, I actually have a case study, but it's not a balance case study. It's a fertility case study, which we'll get into
We love
in a little bit. But so every year, so we all have this unique relationship to the postnatal qi. And the only way that we can actually identify how we're going to respond to a particular time or a particular type of environment or a particular type of yang shengfa is by very clearly understanding what our prenatal qi is. The prenatal qi, especially of the BaZi, as well as, as much as we can, the prenatal qi of Earth and the prenatal qi of humans. But once we understand that, then we can look forward and we can see sort of what's to come. That said, there are some general guidelines that we can all follow in certain given years, okay? They'll work for most people. And the year that's coming up is actually the year of the metal ox, okay? So the year of the metal ox is going to be quite different than this year. The ox it brings with it a very conservative type of energy. We call it, we say ox is orthodox. Okay, so that means that it's not going to be very revolutionary or innovative or anything like that. It's basically going to be a fairly sort of just a continuation, okay, a persistence, right, of how things have been. And actually, I would say that on a large scale, the year of the ox, it could really be one of righting the ship, okay, or restoring order, okay. It's not going to be about taking the ship in a new direction, okay. It's just going to
Got it.
be, right, let's stabilize things and let's steady as she goes, right, which makes sense after the year that we've actually had. Now, with that, there are certain health risks that come up from the climate, and you can actually understand these health risks, not just on a unique personal level, but on a broader level. When you actually look at a theory in the Neijing Suen called the Wu Yun Liu Qi, okay, or the 5 movements in 6 Qi.
Yes.
And so it says that this year is going to be a year where water is very deficient, where dampness and heat are very, very strong. So we're looking at conditions where damp heat, possibly even phlegm, might actually cause a lot of problems.
Mm.
And water deficiency puts people with, for instance, kidney deficiency, okay, at significant risk, okay, because it's going to be that much less water, right, in the environment for them to sort of rely on. So the general balance for this year for everybody is to include more water into their yang shengfa and into their feng shui. Okay, so the coming year, right, of metal ox is going to be water deficient, and it's going to be excessively earthy, a lot of dampness. And so what we want to do is we want to modify our behaviors and sort of customize our environment to be able to balance that out and prevent those things from creating significant health problems. So of course, drinking water, that's a no-brainer, right? That'll obviously, make more, it'll make a significant impact. So many people are dehydrated anyway. They should be drinking more water. But also eating foods that are cooling and that are salty flavored in nature. Okay, so millet as one of them, as an example, miso, okay, as another example, okay, various seafoods, okay, mussels, right, or cod, or shrimp if you have a lot of sort of cold symptoms, okay, but if not cold symptoms, then just look into the Chinese dietetics and find foods that are salty natured and relatively, don't have to be cold, but they should be cooling in general, okay, and that'll already help tonify that water qi, which is lacking in the heavenly qi, and it'll also help reduce some of that deficiency heat that we're going to be seeing this year. And then you should also,
Can we go more to the ocean and the swimming pool?
of course, more
Jacuzzi?
swimming, right? Spending more. So that's from a feng shui perspective, right? Where should you go, right? So spending more time at bodies of water, spending more time at the lake, spending more time by the ocean, spending more time by rivers, spending more time swimming, right? That would be definitely a yang sheng fa right, approach. You are not only, right, you're combining Yang Sheng Fa and Feng Shui in that sense, right? You're not only spending time in the water, but you're also doing something, right, which is a water-based activity. Spending more time in the shade as well, right? Um, for people who are very sensitive to, well, I guess direction. Okay, direction is plays a major role in feng shui sometimes. So spending more time in the north, okay, or in the northern parts of your city or your house or office. But if you're not quite sure which way north is, then just spend more time in the shade. Okay, that's just easier that way, right?
We're gonna go to visit you, Lao Shi, because you're very north than San Diego.
We are more north than San Diego, absolutely. Yes. So that shows you how, by knowing what's coming up climate-wise and the chi of the heavens, what's coming up in terms of the chi of the heavens, what kind of risks that's bringing, and then what you can do from a yang sheng fa, from a human chi perspective, and from a feng shui or an earth chi perspective, right, to help balance that out, right, and reduce the risks that come with that. There, yeah, that's about it. I lost my train of thought there.
And do you have a case study for us? It's already 11:30, so we have to have that case study in.
Sure, I can do that real quick. So this is actually an interesting one. This is a fertility case study. And let's see, I'm just going to share my screen here. I hope this works. Sure. Oh, why didn't that share screen? Oh, there we go. Start broadcast. All right, that's broadcasting. And here we go. All right, hopefully you can still see me.
Yes.
So this is an interesting case because this was a woman who came to see me for fertility. And she had been trying, she actually came to see me in September of 2017. And she'd been trying for some time and hadn't been having much success. She actually did not have a husband. It was her wife. Her and her wife were trying to do an in vitro fertilization, and it wasn't working. And so they were decided that they wanted to try acupuncture to do it. Now, when I spoke with her, she had already been to see two other acupuncturists, had taken a huge amount of herbs, and nothing really had changed. She had done two IVF procedures in that time, and nothing had worked.
Okay.
So I decided, okay, let's look at her BaZi. Okay, so she was born in the year of the yin metal rooster, the month of the yin water snake, the day of the yin fire goat, and the hour of the yin metal pig. So when you take that all together, okay, you can actually look at it from a five element perspective, and each stem and branch has elemental values to them, and you can sort of lay out and see, okay, well, what does this person's five element constitution look like from a prenatal heavenly qi perspective? And what we very quickly saw was that, let me just do this, there we go, and that for her, okay, the elements that were useful for her were actually fire and wood, whereas the elements of earth and metal and water were actually detrimental to her. Okay. Now, why does that matter? Because in BaZi, okay, you actually end up having particular types of activities and interpersonal associations that end up corresponding to the elements. So, for example, um, the everyone's mother, okay, is the element that actually nourishes you, and you are actually represented by what we call the day stem. Okay, and for her it was yin fire. Okay, so her mother was represented by wood. Okay, and so her children were therefore represented by
The earth.
earth. Okay, and so this was children here, or I'll just put child. Okay, so that meant that that child energy, okay, was actually in that detrimental, right, or that harmful side of the five element cycle for her. It was weakening her, and she was already quite a weak person. So every time she tried to basically get pregnant, her weak constitution would actually prevent that from really taking hold. Okay, it was too much of a strain on her. Now, there are other things about BaZi which we always want to look for when things are what we call rooted, meaning that when we have an energy that exists in both this top level here, the stems, as well as the mid level, when those that appears together, we say that it's rooted, and we say that that particular energy is very likely to play a very prominent role, or to manifest in some way. And she didn't have that in her chart. Now, September 2017, right? She actually ended up what that was actually a Yin Earth Rooster month. So if we actually add that into the chart, which we can very easily do, let me just erase this here, okay? And so what we can actually do is we can say, okay, so she actually did have a little bit of yin fire in her, um, in her, at the stem level now, but existing outside of her chart. And she also had a little bit of yin fire, right, which came in from the year, okay, of 2017. And then she had a bunch of metal coming in, okay, at the branch level for the rooster here, okay. And you say, okay, well, look at that. So this child energy ends up being rooted, right? We now have something up here in these stems, and so that should allow that to manifest. Unfortunately, BaZi is not that easy. It's not that simple. And in her particular case, we had actually something called a self punishment. Okay,
Oh,
a self punishment was happening at that month, and then on top of it, there was a self punishment between the year and her own year here. Okay, and self punishment can often lead to a fair amount of problems in terms of things not going as you want, or um, perhaps as well excessive strain or excessive hardship that you place on yourself. And so it basically it points to a certain type of suffering. Could be health wise, it could be behavioral or relational, anything. But basically what this meant was that this was really not a good year for her to try to actually have any kind of conception. And I told her, I'm like, well, I could treat you, but looking ahead, and I looked at the months to come, and there was nothing really from a prenatal heavenly qi or from a postnatal heavenly qi perspective that was actually pointing to this being a good year, right, for her, is going to make it easier. So um, June of 2018. Okay, now June of 2018 was pretty special for her, or in yeah, for her actually, because this was a year where we had young Earth appearing doubly in the stems. So that means that we would have had young Earth up here. Okay, and yes, that would have rooted Earth, which points to something happening, sort of on a sort of something activating or manifesting, right, in relationship to children. She also had the dog, right, as the year, and the dog actually brought even more earth in at the lower level.
Right.
And so that was also good for that type of energy. However, remember that this is a harmful energy for her. So if it was just earth that was appearing in the sort of in the heavenly chi, uh, then that would not necessarily have been a good time for her to try for IVF. It most likely would have failed. But June is unique because June is a horse month, and the horse relates to fire, very, very strongly to fire. Okay. And on top of it, this horse month, okay, actually combines with her goat and her snake, okay, to actually produce a lot of fire. Okay, a lot. Okay, at more than she already has in her chart. I would say triple the amount of fire. Okay, which is very useful for her. Okay, it supports her and it strengthens her, and it essentially gives her the resources necessary to actually try for conception and IVF.
Great.
And that's what I told her. I said, you know something, you should, if you're going to be doing IVF again, which can be quite expensive, right? And I said, if you're going to be trying for IVF, I would wait a while and try in June of 2018. Um, and Of course, she didn't listen to me. And She said, no, thank you. And I said, okay, no problem, right? If you change your mind, right? Or, she basically, she decided that she wanted to do IVF right then and there, right? And that's the case with a lot of people who are looking for fertility. They're very impatient. So I told her fine, no problem, and then I thought nothing of it. And um, Actually, then I saw her in August of 2018, and at that point, she came in and she said, "I'm pregnant." I said, "Oh, great, right? How long have you been pregnant?" She said, "Well, actually, I tried IVF another 2 times and it failed both times. And then I finally tried again in June of
June
2018
2018, of
and
course.
it's stuck, right? So this was a case where I didn't actually do anything, right? I We could have nourished fire, right? We could have tonified fire at the level of Yang Sheng Fa and at the level of feng shui. However, because of uh, the types of sort of challenges and conflicts that were appearing throughout that particular time period, it probably wouldn't have done much. Okay, when you're dealing with conception, you want a very significant amount of time where that good, positive, useful energy is around. And so that was June for her. But this goes to show you that with BaZi, you can actually counsel people as to when the best times would be to do things like fertility treatments. And if they are not going to necessarily follow that schedule, or if they can't follow that schedule, then you at least have some information that you can then use to strengthen or encourage the necessary energies at the level of Yang Sheng Fa and Feng Shui.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so that was just it was just a quick and interesting case. And
Love it.
Last I heard, she's doing well. They have a little baby boy, and yeah,
Wow.
so everything went well.
Ama- That's amazing, Lao Shi, to have this case that we can use. And after I learning the Bazi, I definitely have more chances for my patient to get pregnant. Absolutely, that is one big thing. And
Absolutely.
patient get pregnant left and right. It's not from me, but it's, no matter what kind of problems, as long as I tonify their child energy, and usually there are pretty much are pregnant, and it like a, I don't know how to say in English. It is the uterus is tilted, so it's hard to get pregnant, conceive, and or the older people like 42 years old, and also I have many, and or the oldest one right now is 48 years old. So and it's conceived, but miscarriage, but we're trying for the next time. So it is really very helpful by looking at the BaZi information that helps me so much to accurately to pinpoint when I even know that is a good time for them to try. And I do
Absolutely.
that, and thank you for showing that to us. So I have one question for you, Lao Shi. At the earlier you mentioned that
Yes.
the people who is night out, or people who is like wake up early
Hmm.
and morning person, and I am a baby who was in the incubator for 24 hours. What kind of person am I?
Oh, you're definitely an early bird.
Okay.
So that touches on something which we talk about a lot in class, is that um, the prenatal aspects of heavenly chi. Um, we actually now would understand that prenatal chi to actually represent a lot more the early childhood development. Okay. So someone who's born in the morning is generally going to be an early bird, whereas someone who's born in the evening or at night is generally going to be a night owl. However, this has a lot to do with light levels. And so, for instance, someone who's born in an incubator, or not born in an incubator, is placed in an incubator for an extended period of time. They are exposed to very intense light levels for good reasons, but that completely shifts, right, their the rhythm of the light cycle that they are first exposed to, right? And so that can absolutely play a role in sort of how a person ends up, or what kind of, shall we say, chi, right, a person ends up um, sort of integrating into their prenatal heavenly chi. Absolutely.
Got it. So, to all of you, if you have any more questions about this kind of things, you will be all addressed in our class. And we do have new cohort going to start in March 2021. And I'm already asked Sean to post it in the group. And we will starting in March, in mid of March. And we will have, oh, we also have discounted if you register for 5 levels, you get 10% off for your tuition. So please register soon so you can get this special discount for 5 levels, level 1 to 5. And you will have Dr. Cushion Saint-Pierre at your fingertip. He will answer your questions. He is very dedicated teacher. He always answer your question usually within a couple hours. I tell him keep slow down, because the people will have expectation. So I make him to answer in 3 days, but he's still doing really quickly. So you have a great teacher here to guide you through all this process of learning the BaZi seminar, and BaZi how to do the chrono analogy and do acupuncture with this, especially for who you prefer to do fertility treatment. This will be best tool that you can find for you and your patients, so you can see what will happen to them. So please make sure you go onto our website, and please make sure that you register for the class. And then I will also invite Dr. Saint-Pierre next month to also tell us more about how to do the Yang Senfa. And this time he's already predict what's going to happen next year. So please, all of you, and can rewatch this video so you know what's going to happen in the next metal ox year. And thank you for the prediction. And we hope that you can give us more of this juicy insight. And then we will have a lot more fun. And thank you, lots, for all the time that you're showing us. And I will talk to you guys very soon about 3 essential new courses. All right. And also, it's a new announcement for next year. I will have a special courses after the Sunday share. I will have in-person live streaming Zoom for case study. But this is for the people who is already on the referral list. As long as you're gold level, executive level, you are coming in for free. If you guys are premier level, if you continue taking classes from the academy, you can come in for free. For the rest of the people that who you want me to be there for you and round table, you can ask me questions. After the sharing Sunday share, you will have to have a subscribing for the fee. Okay, and then we will have that more information for you for next year, and then you will be having a time with me answering you for questions that you have in your clinic. I will also share cases study for you, all of you, how to treat drop foot. Have you ever treat drop foot? I have very good successful cases, and how you going to treat this and learn this, then you will be able to be success in your clinic. And I'm also talk to Dr. Christian. I want to make him to do the same thing for the BaZi students. If you have time, and then he will have his very precious time on Zoom with you guys, and you guys have to pay a fee, maybe $10 or something like that, or a whole year subscribe for $100, something like that. I will talk to Dr. Saint-Pierre that he will have to spare the time for us. So all these are for the new years, and we will continue keep what we have and continue going on with the strong, with the balanced method community. Sound good, Dr. Saint-Pierre? I get you in trouble. I dig in the
No,
hole. I put you in.
that's fine. That's fine. The case studies which we would be doing will be very clinically oriented. So, as Eileen had mentioned at the very beginning, I have been working a lot with time-based acupuncture. So chrono acupuncture and what we call BaZi balance acupuncture. So there'll be a lot of case studies on how to basically use time-based acupuncture and BaZi-based acupuncture to treat a wide variety of sort of difficult conditions, as well as mental emotional disorders, so that shun disorders.
Yes.
So including possession. So that's always fun. So yeah, if you're interested, then stay tuned. Right, keep an eye out on the Academy of Acupuncture's pages and notifications. And
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to this new series, to our new cohort.
Yes.
And yeah, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Whether it's about the course material, or whether or not it's about a consultation or a difficult
Yes.
patient you might have, right? I'm always happy to you know, discuss it with you for sure.
Excellent. So I will have Sean posting Dr. Saint-Pierre's website. If you want to have a consultation, he'll be happy to do it for you. And also, I noticed he did it for me too, because he had that video for me to watch it over and over again, and which is very helpful for you to have a outline what's going to happen every year. So I always have a consultation with him. So that is very helpful for me to what to do, what to expand, or I should be conservative, or this is a really great consultation you can have. Make sure you go onto his website, and Sean is posting his website address right now. So please visit his website so you'll be able to learn more and get to contact with Dr. Saint-Pierre. Sounds good, everyone?
Sounds great.
Thank you, Lao Shi. I will see you next time. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, right? I guess the Tista season, right? And I wish you all a happy and healthy and safe holidays.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Have a great time. Bye-bye. Thank you.